The church bells rang with a cruel irony, each note echoing like a countdown to my own execution. I had come dressed in elegance, my deep emerald gown flowing like rivers of silk, my hair pinned high, my smile rehearsed in the mirror 100 times. I was supposed to look untouchable, but nothing prepared me for what Daniel would do. He was the groom, the man I had once loved so deeply that I would have burned the world for him. Now, I was just a ghost in his story, a past he had decided to bury. Or so I thought, the guests murmured happily as the bride walked down the aisle. I smiled politely, clapping with the rest, but inside my chest, my heart twisted. I thought the hardest part would be simply watching him give vows he once promised me, watching him hold her the way he used to hold me, watching him smile at another woman, the way he once smiled at me. But then it happened. The priest had barely begun when Daniel's gaze shifted across the sea of faces and landed on me. His eyes glimmered with something sharp, something cruel. His lips curled into a smirk, and before I could brace myself, his voice cut through the sacred air. "Funny, isn't it?" he said loudly enough for half the pews to hear. "How some people just can't let go, even when they're not invited." Gasps, whispers. Dozens of heads turned toward me like daggers. My blood turned to ice. The bride, Rebecca, shot me a confused look, then tugged at Daniel's arm. "What are you doing?" she whispered. But Daniel wasn't finished. He laughed. Actually laughed in front of God, family, friends, everyone. "Sorry," he added, though his tone was anything but. "It's just, old ghosts never know when to rest." My cheeks burned crimson. My throat tightened. The room spun. I wanted to disappear, to evaporate into the stained glass light streaming through the windows. But then something inside me snapped. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't heartbreak. It was fire. He thought he could shame me publicly, in front of hundreds. He thought I would crawl out, broken, while he celebrated his perfect new life. No. If Daniel wanted to turn me into the spectacle, I would give him a performance no one would ever forget. Cliffhanger. What could I possibly do, in the middle of a wedding, that would turn his cruel game against him? I sat through the rest of the ceremony like a statue, my hands clenched in my lap, my jaw tight, my pulse screaming in my ears. Daniel avoided my eyes now, satisfied with his little performance, his smirk plastered across his face as he kissed his new bride. The applause rang out like mockery. Everyone rose to their feet, cheering, throwing petals, celebrating love. I rose with them, my lips curved into a mask of a smile. Inside, though, my mind was whirling. If Daniel wanted to make me the villain of this story, fine. I would be the villain. By the time the reception began, I had a plan. The ballroom glowed with chandeliers and laughter. Tables lined with champagne flutes, gold-trimmed napkins, and an endless buffet of decadence surrounded us. The newlyweds sat at the head table, basking in attention, basking in applause. I watched them carefully, my smile never faltering. I let them believe I was broken. I let them think their cruelty had worked, but the truth? I was studying every detail. The microphone sat idle at the edge of the stage, waiting for speeches. The servers wove between tables, carrying trays. The DJ was distracted, scrolling through his playlist. And Daniel, my Daniel, was drinking. Drinking heavily. Perfect. As the best man finished his speech, an awkward joke about how Daniel always got what he wanted, I felt my heart steady. It was my turn. I stood clinking my glass with deliberate calm. The room quieted. All eyes turned to me. "May I?" I asked sweetly, my voice carrying a note of false humility. "I'd like to say a few words." Daniel's smirk froze. His bride's eyes narrowed, but neither stopped me. I took the microphone, my hands steady, my voice smooth. "I'll keep this short. I just want to raise a toast to Daniel and Rebecca. I paused, letting the suspense build. After all, not many men can look their bride in the eye, while hiding so many secrets in their pocket. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Daniel's face paled. Rebecca turned sharply toward him. I smiled. The fire was lit. Cliffhanger. What secrets would I reveal? And how would the reception descend into chaos once the truth left my lips? The ballroom froze. Champagne flutes hung midair. Forks stopped clinking. The silence was thick enough to choke on. I held the microphone like it was a sword, and Daniel looked like a man who'd just seen the ground open beneath his feet. His smile twitched, then vanished completely. Rebecca, the bride, leaned toward him. What is she talking about? Daniel forced a laugh, thin and hollow. Ignore her. She's just telling the truth, I cut in, my voice sharp, slicing through the room like glass. I took a step forward, my heels clicking against the polished marble floor. You see, Daniel here has a habit. A hobby, really. He collects women's hearts like souvenirs, and when he's done, he tosses them away. But what makes him unique, I tilted my head, smiling coldly, is how he lies about it. How he convinces each one that they're special, while promising the exact same vows to another. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I caught a woman at the corner table stiffen, her eyes darting down. Interesting. I wasn't the only one. Rebecca's face drained of color. Daniel? His jaw clenched. She's bitter. She's lying. Oh, am I? I said sweetly. Then I reached into my clutch. The room leaned closer. My fingers curled around the phone I had prepared, screen already cued with screenshots, messages, photos, proof. With a single tap, I held the glowing screen high. Would you like me to read them out loud? Or shall I forward them to every guest here tonight? Murmurs erupted. Someone actually gasped. Oh my God! Daniel shot up from his seat, his chair scraping harshly. Enough! He barked, his face red, veins bulging at his temple. You're pathetic! You show up here, uninvited, trying to ruin what's supposed to be the happiest day of my life. This is my wedding. You're making a fool of yourself. I let him spit venom, his voice trembling with desperation. And then, I smiled. Correction. I said softly into the microphone. You made a fool of me in front of everyone. Now I'm just returning the favor. The crowd exploded with whispers. Rebecca's trembling hand pulled Daniel back into his chair. Her voice shook. Show me, she demanded. I want to see. I walked toward her, the phone glowing between us, like a torch that would burn the lies away. And that was only the beginning. Cliffhanger. What Rebecca saw on that phone would shatter the entire reception. But was she ready to face the truth? Rebecca's hand trembled as she took the phone from me. For a moment, she hesitated, her eyes darting between Daniel and me, between the man she thought she knew and the storm I had just unleashed. Then, with one breath, she unlocked the screen. The silence was suffocating as she scrolled. Message after message. Sweet nothings copied and pasted like cheap poetry. Late-night confessions. Promises of forever. Photos. Intimate. Undeniable. Her lips parted, her chest heaving as the truth poured into her like poison. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, this can't be real. It's real, I said softly. Every word. Every picture. Every lie. Daniel lurched forward, his voice desperate. Rebecca, listen to me. She's twisting it. She's manipulating everything. Manipulating? I snapped, my voice rising with controlled fury. Tell them, Daniel. Tell everyone how many times you called me from this very church parking lot while you were planning this wedding. Tell them how you begged me to meet you, up until last month. Gasps ricocheted through the room like gunshots. Heads turned. Whispers hissed. Rebecca's bridesmaids clutched each other's arms in horror. Rebecca stood abruptly, her chair toppling behind her. Tears streaked down her flawless makeup, black mascara bleeding into her veil. She looked at me, then at Daniel, her voice breaking. "How could you?" Daniel's mask cracked. He reached for her hand, but she ripped it away like it burned. "You humiliated me," I said, my voice calmer now, lower, as if the fire inside me had finally found its release. "You thought you could destroy me in public, Daniel. But now they all see who you really are." Rebecca turned, scanning the crowd, her shame mingling with rage. And then, for the first time since the wedding began, she looked at me with something unexpected. Not hatred. Not anger, but gratitude. Her chin lifted, her shoulders straightened. She faced Daniel, her voice trembling but loud enough for every guest to hear. "You may have shamed her, but you destroyed us." The ballroom erupted, half in chaos, half in awe. Guests stood, arguing, whispering, some filming the drama on their phones. The perfect wedding reception had officially turned into a battlefield, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Cliffhanger. Daniel wasn't going to take this downfall quietly. What he did next would push the reception into complete chaos. The ballroom was unraveling. Voices overlapped, cameras flashed. The bride stood trembling. And Daniel, my once lover, my betrayer, was about to combust. His face twisted with rage. But there was something darker behind his eyes. Desperation. "You think you've won?" he hissed, snatching the microphone from my hand. His voice boomed through the speakers, commanding attention. "You all think she's some kind of victim? No, she's a vengeful liar who can't move on. She's here because she's obsessed with me." The room fell into stunned silence again. Dozens of eyes swung back to me. "Obsessed?" I repeated, stepping closer, my heels clacking with every deliberate stride. "Is that what you call it when someone exposes your filth? Is that what you tell yourself when the lies finally collapse?" Daniel sneered, pointing at me. "You don't know her like I do. She'll twist anything to get attention. She'll say anything to ruin me. Why? Because I rejected her." That struck a nerve, and he knew it. His words cut through me like knives. For a split second, my chest tightened. I could feel the sting of humiliation creeping up again. The same feeling he used to control me with. But not tonight. I snatched the microphone back. My hand shook, not from fear, but from the storm raging inside me. "Rejected me?" I said slowly, almost laughing. "Daniel, you begged me. You begged me to stay, begged me not to leave you. Do you really want me to play those recordings too?" A ripple of shock spread through the guests. Rebecca froze. "Recordings?" My lips curved into a cold smile. "Yes, because unlike him, I don't erase the evidence." I pulled out my phone again, the screen glowing like a loaded gun in my palm. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for the next revelation. Daniel lunged toward me, panic flashing in his eyes. "Stop it!" he barked, his voice cracking. "You don't know what you're doing." But the more he tried to silence me, the more powerful I felt. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, raising the phone toward the mic. "This is the man of the hour, the man who calls himself a husband." And then, with one tap, his voice filled the ballroom. "Baby, please, don't leave me. You're the only one who understands me. I'll fix this, just don't tell anyone about us, please." The guests gasped. Rebecca's knees buckled, her bridesmaids catching her before she hit the floor. Daniel's face turned white, the blood draining out as if my phone had bled him dry. "Still think I'm obsessed?" I whispered, my voice sharp as broken glass. The entire reception was crumbling, but I knew Daniel wasn't finished. He was a cornered animal now, and cornered animals always fight back. Cliffhanger. What Daniel did next shocked the entire ballroom, and it turned the night into an all-out war. The sound of his own pleading voice still echoed from the speakers when Daniel snapped, With a roar, he grabbed the mic stand and slammed it against the floor, the crash reverberating like thunder. Gasps and screams echoed through the hall. A few guests even backed toward the exits, clutching their purses and phones. Daniel pointed at me with trembling fury. "You're destroying everything! You're sick!" I didn't flinch. I stood tall, staring him down. "No, Daniel. I'm not sick. I'm free," the crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. For the first time, the tide was turning in my favor. They weren't just entertained anymore. They were starting to believe me. Rebecca, veil disheveled, mascara streaked, finally rose from her chair. She looked at Daniel, her voice trembling but cold. "You humiliated her. You humiliated me. And you humiliated every single person in this room by pretending this marriage meant something." Daniel turned on her, his eyes wild. "Don't you dare blame me for this. She's the one ruining our wedding." Rebecca's voice cracked, but it carried through the hall. "No, Daniel. You ruined it long before tonight." The room erupted in applause, scattered at first, then building, echoing like a tidal wave. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked around, realizing the audience wasn't with him anymore. He wasn't the charming groom, the celebrated man of the hour. He was the fraud. And then, like a drowning man grasping for anything, he tried one last trick. "You think she's innocent?" he barked, pointing at me again. "You think she didn't know I was engaged? She knew. She still chased me. She's no victim. She's the villain here!" The crowd gasped, turning to me. For a split second, doubt flickered across their faces. But I was ready for this. I pulled another envelope from my clutch, this one sealed in gold. Slowly, dramatically, I tore it open. "Ladies and gentlemen, inside this envelope are the receipts of every hotel booking, every flight, every secret message Daniel sent me during his engagement. He paid, he arranged, he lied. I didn't chase him, he trapped me." I lifted the papers high, letting the cameras flash, letting the guests murmur as they craned their necks to see. Rebecca snatched one sheet from my hand. Her eyes scanned the page and her voice rang out. "Oh my God. It's true." The ballroom exploded. Shouts, gasps, whispers. Someone yelled, "He's finished." Another hissed, "What a monster!" Daniel stood frozen, his entire empire collapsing in front of him. The crowd that once applauded him now glared, phones raised to capture his downfall. And for the first time all night, I felt the weight lift off my chest. The power shifted. The reception was no longer his stage. It was mine. Cliffhanger. But the night wasn't over. Daniel still had one last desperate move, and it would drag everyone, including me, into chaos. Daniel's mask was gone. His slick charm, his carefully rehearsed smile, shattered. What stood before me now was a man stripped bare, desperate, furious, and dangerous. The applause still echoed when he lunged forward, yanking the stack of papers from Rebecca's trembling hands. "These don't prove anything," he roared. "You don't know what she's capable of. She forged these. She's trying to ruin me because she couldn't have me." The crowd booed. Guests shouted, "Liar!" And we saw the receipts. But Daniel wasn't listening. He grabbed the mic again, his voice rising with manic energy. "You people don't know the full story. She's not innocent. She's hiding things, dark things." And then he turned his eyes on me. "You want to tell them, Emily? Or should I?" A chill spread through my veins. He was bluffing. He had to be. But the way his lips curled, the way his eyes narrowed, told me he had something. Something meant to destroy me in front of everyone. Rebecca looked between us, confused. "What is he talking about?" Daniel smirked, savoring the tension. "She wants you all to think she's a saint. But what if I told you that while she was playing the victim, she was hiding a scandal of her own? The room froze. Every eye locked on me. My throat went dry. He was twisting reality again, dragging shadows out of nowhere, weaponizing half-truths. He'd done this before, privately. Tonight, he wanted to do it publicly. But I wasn't the same woman he used to manipulate. "Go ahead," I said, my voice steady even as my hands trembled at my sides. "Tell them." Daniel grinned like a predator who thought he had won. "She stole from me," he declared, pointing at me like a judge handing down a sentence. "When we were together, she drained my accounts. Thousands. That's who she really is. A thief." The crowd erupted in gasps. Rebecca's jaw dropped. My pulse pounded. I could feel the room tilting, judgment pressing against me. For a split second, his words pierced deep, stirring old fears that no one would ever believe me. But then, I remembered the truth. "Do you really want to talk about money, Daniel?" I said softly, walking toward him. My heels clicked against the marble, each step cutting through the noise. "Because if I stole from you, how come every transaction leads back to your accounts? Your fake companies? Your little shell businesses?" Daniel's smirk faltered. "Yes," I continued, my voice rising with fire. "I know about the offshore accounts. The hush money transfers. The bribes. You didn't think I'd find them, did you?" Gasps rippled again, sharper this time. "You see," I added, locking eyes with him. "The only thief in this room is you." I lifted my phone once more, swiping to the documents. Names, dates, transactions. The proof that would bury him not just in shame, but in handcuffs. Rebecca covered her mouth. "Oh my God." The crowd exploded, phones flashing, voices overlapping. Some shouted, "Call the police!" Others cried, "Is this real?" Daniel's face twisted. He wasn't just embarrassed now. He was trapped. And when a man like Daniel is trapped, he doesn't surrender. He attacks. Cliffhanger. What Daniel did next would turn the reception into complete chaos. The air grew heavy, charged like a storm seconds before lightning. Daniel's hand clenched the mic stand, his knuckles white. His chest heaved as he scanned the crowd. Their disgust, their whispers, their phones capturing every second. And then, he snapped. With a guttural scream, he hurled the mic stand across the floor. It crashed into the wedding cake, toppling tiers of white frosting and sugar flowers in a messy explosion. Guests shrieked, stumbling backward, some dropping champagne flutes that shattered against the floor. Rebecca screamed, her gown smeared with cake. "What is wrong with you?" Daniel's face contorted. "You, all of you! You think you're better than me? You're all parasites feeding off me, judging me." He lunged toward me. For a terrifying second, I thought he might actually strike me. But before his hand reached, two of the groomsmen and an older uncle rushed forward, restraining him. He thrashed, spitting, screaming, "You'll regret this, Emily," he bellowed. "This isn't over. I'll destroy you!" The guests booed, some shouting, "Get him out!" Others yelled for security. And then, like a divine twist of fate, the ballroom doors opened, and uniformed officers stepped in. Gasps rippled again. Someone had called the police. Maybe it was Rebecca. Maybe it was one of the guests. Maybe fate itself decided it was time. The officers stormed forward. "Daniel Harris?" One barked. "You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and financial misconduct." The crowd erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed like fireworks. People gasped, whispered, pointed. Daniel froze, his eyes wide, his voice breaking. No, this isn't happening." He tried to twist away, but the officers cuffed his wrists behind his back. Rebecca collapsed into a chair, sobbing. The bridesmaids huddled around her, Guests muttered, shaking their heads, some disgusted, others stunned. I stood motionless, watching the man who once controlled my every move being dragged away in disgrace. My heart pounded, but it wasn't fear this time. It was release. The doors slammed shut behind him. Silence settled over the room, and then slowly, the guests began to applaud. It wasn't for the bride. It wasn't for the ruined cake or the wrecked reception. It was for justice, for karma, for the truth finally revealed. And for me, I felt tears prick my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, standing tall in the wreckage of what had once been his perfect night. Cliffhanger. But as I thought it was over, Rebecca approached me with a request that left me speechless. The room was still buzzing from Daniel's arrest, like static clinging to every corner of the ballroom. Guests whispered, cameras clicked, waiters awkwardly tried to sweep up broken glass and chunks of wedding cake. I stood frozen in the eye of the storm, heart still pounding, adrenaline still coursing. My mind screamed it was over, but deep down, I knew the night had one more card to play. Rebecca rose slowly from her chair. Her veil was crooked, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and bits of frosting clung to her gown. She looked nothing like the glowing bride who had walked down the aisle hours earlier. But her eyes burned with a mix of fury, betrayal, and something else I couldn't quite place. She walked toward me. Every step she took silenced the chatter around us until the whole room held its breath. When she stopped just a few feet away, she whispered, her voice trembling but sharp. "You knew." I swallowed. I suspected. But tonight was the first time I could prove it. Rebecca's jaw clenched. Her hands shook as she smoothed her gown. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? What it feels like to stand there in front of everyone while my husband," her voice cracked on the word, "is dragged out in handcuffs?" My chest tightened. I braced for her to slap me, scream at me, blame me, and maybe I deserved it. But then her voice shifted, quieter, more broken. "You saved me." The words caught me off guard. Tears welled in her eyes as she continued. "If you hadn't exposed him tonight, I would have spent years of my life chained to that monster. He humiliated you, manipulated you, and I believed him. I'm so sorry." Her apology pierced deeper than Daniel's lies ever had. For a moment, I saw her not as my enemy, but as another victim caught in his web. Rebecca reached out, gripping my hand tightly. "Please, help me annul this marriage. Help me take back my life. I don't know who else to trust right now, but I trust you." The entire ballroom was watching us. Guests who had seen me walk in as the shamed ex and now stood stunned as the bride asked for my help. I nodded slowly, squeezing her hand back. "We'll do this together." For the first time that night, Rebecca smiled through her tears. The crowd erupted into quiet applause, not for her dress, not for the ruined reception, but for the strange, fragile alliance born from betrayal and truth. But deep inside me, another storm brewed. Because while Daniel was gone, his final words still haunted me. "This isn't over. I'll destroy you." And I knew men like Daniel never went down quietly. Cliffhanger. Could I really trust that? This was the end. Or was there another twist waiting to strike? Days passed like a blur after the wedding. The videos went viral. Millions watched Daniel's downfall in real time. Headlines screamed, "Groom arrested at own reception," "Bride betrayed," "Ex exposes scandal in shocking twist." From humiliation to triumph, Emily's story rocks the internet. Daniel's empire crumbled overnight. His fake companies were seized, his accounts frozen. Former partners turned on him. Lawyers circled like vultures. And me? For the first time in years, I could breathe. Rebecca and I met in quiet cafes, lawyers' offices, even her family's kitchen table. She filed for annulment, and every document I had on Daniel became her weapon in court. Slowly, painfully, she broke free. But I didn't stop there. I took everything Daniel once used against me, the lies, the manipulation, the shame, and turned it into my voice. I wrote articles, spoke to journalists, told my story on podcasts, not as his victim, but as the woman who refused to be silenced. One evening, weeks later, I walked past the same hotel where the reception had taken place. The ballroom lights were dim, a new couple's laughter echoing through the halls. Life moved on. But for me, that night would always be the line between who I was and who I became. Because I wasn't the broken woman Daniel mocked anymore. I was stronger, louder, unstoppable. I paused outside, my reflection shimmering in the glass doors. A smile tugged at my lips. Not bitter, not vengeful, but proud. Daniel once thought shame could break me. But in the end, it only made me powerful enough to destroy him. Justice wasn't just served at that reception. It became the foundation of the rest of my life. And if Daniel's words still echoed somewhere in the back of my mind, this isn't over. I let them. Because for once, I wasn't afraid. He had lost everything, and I had finally won.